Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy.
Welcome to Frogman Friday. I'm Ryan Birdman Parrott. Today, our special guest is Edward Gallagher, aka Eddie. He served 20-ish years as a Navy SEAL, exiting service as a Chief Petty Officer. He and his wife, Andrea, founded Pipehitter Foundation and authored the book, Man in the Arena. You can follow Eddie on social media, handles to follow after the show. To learn more about the book, Man in the Arena, go shop your local bookstores and scoop up a copy. And to learn more about Pipehitter Foundation, go check out pipehitterfoundation.org. Brother, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, dude, there's nothing like having an alpha platooner with us. I mean, it's my platoon, your platoon, super stoked. You got the hat on, fired up. So let's dig right in. Let's start off with a book, talk about Man in the Arena. Tell us why you wrote it, what it was like to write it, and just share whatever you want to share.
Sure, man. So, I wrote the book right after I retired, all last year. It revolves around pretty much, and I'm sure your listeners have either heard my name or you can look it up. I had a pretty tumultuous 2 years before I retired. I was thrown in military prison for 9 months. And then went to court-martial and was found not guilty, but they were charging me with war crimes. They charged me with premeditated murder, and I was facing life in prison without parole. When they locked me up in prison, my wife and my brother both stood up and said, "You're not doing this." They started fighting back. They using social media. My wife pretty much started a organic social media campaign, putting the truth out about what was going on, because there was a lot of corruption, deception, lies, pretty much involving anybody that was touching my case. And I won't get too deep into the story. If people want to find out, it's definitely read the book, The Man in the Arena. It has all the details in there. But it is a very crazy story, and we came out victorious at the end of it. So when I got out, my face had been plastered all over the media. It is something that I never would have wanted for myself. I've always been try to be a quiet professional and just do my job. But there was no choice in the matter at that point. I was sort of thrust into the spotlight, and there was a lot of lies and half truths that were put out about me. I think half the country had made up their mind I was some kind of psychopath because of the media. Had put out a bunch of misinformation. So I really wrote the book to set the truth straight, and to really highlight what my wife and brother did for me during that time, because it's beyond extraordinary. They're the reason, President Trump at the time got involved. They're the reason that anybody got involved to help us win at a court-martial. So I really wanted to highlight that, and then, highlight exactly what my family went through during that time. I think people read stuff in the news and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy's being charged with this. Oh, okay, he's going to court-martial, but there's so much more involved, and the amount of stress that was put onto my whole family, and that's the way they persevered through it, and never once played the victim role. I really wanted to show that to inspire people. If you're facing an adverse situation, man, I think that the whole victim mentality has become a pandemic in this country. I think everyone plays the victim card as much as they can, and I wanted to show people that you don't have to play that card and to fight back against what's going on. That's another reason that I wrote the book. And then as I was writing it, there's so much corruption and deceit during this. I was like, nobody's going to believe this. It was almost like, and I was just writing straight from facts what happened. It wasn't anything made up. So as I'm writing it, I was like, dude, this is like A Few Good Men meets Rules of Engagement meets My Cousin Vinny, because it was so amateur the way the prosecutors and the judge and everybody else acted. So I decided to put in QR codes in the book. So as you're reading along, and I put them in certain spots to where you're like, no fucking way this could have happened. All you got to do is click on that QR code, and you can listen to all of the NCIS interviews, all the trial audio. You can look at all the evidence they had against me. And pretty much, I mean, it's all right there. It's like undisputed, like this, here it is. And you can make up your mind at the end of the book, what you think. And that's the way I wanted to do it. I realize when you're writing a book, it's your side. And everybody, they say that there's your truth, the other person's truth, and then somewhere in the middle is the actual truth. So I was like, okay, well then here's everything. And I didn't hide anything. There's stuff in there that I'm not a perfect human being. It doesn't make me look the best, but at the same time, like what happened to me and my family was disgusting, and that we didn't deserve any of that. If people actually see what happened. So that's the main reason, man. And I really wanted to highlight just what our brothers in arms have been doing the past 20 years as well. I think that's gotten lost on the American people. And I really wanted to highlight the heroes that I got to work along, work beside during my career. And just as that's what makes the teams such a wonderful place, man, is like you are literally working among giants and trying to keep up the whole time. So I really wanted to show that, and just the fact that, this country, or not this country, but, half this country was trying to demonize me for wanting to do my job and wanting to deploy overseas. And I was like, well, if you're demonizing me, then you're demonizing 90% of the special forces, So that's the reason I wrote it, man. And, and it's doing really well. I'm definitely surprised, and I'm grateful how well it's doing. I think due to the fact that I put in all the QR codes, and the book is written very raw. I didn't try to fluff it up any. I'm like, it's straight from my voice. My wife has chapters in it. My kids have chapters in it. I think my lawyers. So I definitely wanted to get other people's perspectives in there, especially when it comes to legality and all that. I'm not the best at, even though I got a full, I drank through a fire hose on learning the legal system, UCMJ. I wanted my lawyer to really break it down so people could understand what was really going on. But yeah, that's the reason I wrote it.
Right on, man. Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I saw Andrea on the news quite a bit, and she's a powerhouse. I mean,
Oh yeah.
It was impressive, super impressive. That's a hell of a woman right there.
Man. God bless me for sure. Her and I were best friends in high school. I also go over that in the book, like how her and I met. It's funny sitting down, because I decided to write the book. I talked to enough people, and the people I actually knew what had happened during that time that were close to me, a lot of my team guys, and they're like, dude, and I was against writing the book at all. So I'm sure as you grew up in the teams, it's like, you don't write books. Like, if you do, you're a piece of shit, sell out. And that was told to me by certain individuals who have like 4 or 5 books out now. So either way, like I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. The story needs to be told, and I stayed away from my deployments or telling these stories like, oh, there I was, blah blah blah. I barely mentioned buds in there. But enough guys had told me, you should write it. And so, sitting down to write that book was definitely difficult. And I obviously have never written a book before, but I pretty much had the same attitude like I did going to buds. I was like, I'm going to go do this without even really thinking of the consequences, repercussions. I'm just doing it. And that's the way I went into it. I had a ghostwriter with me named Andy Simmons. He helped me out. Help a lot. I would write a chapter, then he would help me revise it, and then we would just keep going back and forth, and we got it done in a pretty quick amount of time due to quarantine. Everybody was locked up in their house, so I had nothing better to do than work on the book, which was a blessing. But yeah, it was definitely difficult to write it, and you never know, once it's done, you're like, here it is, and you put it out to the world, and you're hoping that people actually read it. And I'm grateful and humbled that enough people have bought it and they're reading it, and it's still picking up traction.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you one thing you mentioned is that in the teams you look up to giants, and that's so true. However, I've talked to so many guys, because again, for those listening, Eddie and I never actually served in a platoon together, but I've heard from these guys that you are a physical freak, which pisses me off, because I want to be the best alpha platooner out there, like ever. So we're gonna have to race or do something one of these days.
Down. Yeah. I mean, yeah, fitness has always been, it's a big part of the teams, and I just became obsessed with it when I was in. I did 4 years with the Marines beforehand, and that was every day. They're very disciplined, so it was like every morning, 5 a.m, you're up PTing with the battalion. So it just became a way of life for me.
Totally, man. Well, let's jump right into let's talk about Pipe Hitter Foundation. What exactly it is? Why'd you found it? Just tell me everything from soup to nuts.
Sure. So that idea was born out of the situation that we were put into when I was locked up at Miramar Brig. I met, I was in general population for a long time, and I met a lot of kids in there, kids and adults. And I say kids because they're, a lot of them are like 18, 19, 20 years old. And to me, you're a kid still during that time, even though you've signed up for the military. And these kids are in there serving 5 to 8 years for failing a drug test, or, doing something that's so minuscule, but because it breaks these laws under the UCMJ, they are punishing these kids to the fullest extent. And it really bothered me, man, because, these were good kids. I'd sit down, have talks with them. I tried to like mentor them when I was in there. Because, they're 18, 19, they have no real direction yet. And I just was thinking, I'm like, these kids could have signed up for college instead of signing up for the military and serving their country, and they'd be fine. Like these kids that popped for smoking weed, I'm like, that wouldn't even be an issue if they had signed up for college. But because of the fact that they chose to sign on the dotted line and serve their country, and they made a mistake, now they're being punished to the fullest extent. I was like, it isn't right. You're taking like years away from these people's lives for one mistake. So and then we also found out just how corrupt the UCMJ is and how it really works. It's not a fair system. They stack the deck against you, and that's everybody pretty much. If you're being charged with something, you are guilty until you prove your own innocence, and that's just the way it is. So what I do know is, that people in the military can't afford good lawyers. They can't afford civilian lawyers, which is why they appoint you a JAG. And that's the other problem, is the JAG works for the institution, and they're not going to give you the best counsel or represent you the best way, because they're also worried about their job and their evals. So it's we decided, we were pretty much pulling our hair out watching, as we were going through it, like, how can this possibly be? How can they treat service members like this? And that's where the idea of starting a nonprofit, and I'll backtrack real quick too. We had signed on with a nonprofit during my case called United American Patriots, who pretty much do the same thing we do now. I met with these lawyers. They were like, hey, we'll represent you during this, and you won't pay for a dime. This nonprofit pays for the whole thing, and which sounds awesome, right? You're like, great, because I can't afford a lawyer. We came to find out that this nonprofit was definitely corrupt, and they were not working on my case one bit while I was in there, which was disturbing. I'd go to motions hearings at the courthouse with them, and they wouldn't be prepared one bit. We'd be like 5 minutes before we'd have to go in the courtroom, and they're shuffling papers around like, what's the plan? As an operator, I'm like staring at them like, how the hell do you guys not have this prepared? But then again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm like, okay, I was trusting these guys, like they have my best interest at heart. It wasn't until these guys started threatening me, or not they were telling me that they wanted to push my trial out a year, which would have meant I would have sat in prison for a year waiting for my trial. And I was like, no freaking way, that's not going to happen. I was asking for a speedy trial the whole time because I knew I was innocent. And they kept, denying my speedy trial. And then they would threaten me. These lawyers, these are my lawyers, would threaten me with like, well, if you don't want us to be prepared, then you're just going to go away for life. And then they started extorting my wife for money. So actually, Drago, who you've interviewed, the Navy SEALs Fund, stood up and started raising money for my family during this time. And that money was really meant for it was meant for my legal fees, but then also if I was going to get put away for life, then I wanted my wife and 3 kids to be taken care of with some sort of money. That money got out to about 250 grand pretty quick, and that's when the other nonprofits started extorting us, saying they wanted that money or else they would not represent me in the way that I should be. So that, that coincided with what we saw going on in the brig is really where the Pipe Hitter Foundation formed from. We're like, hey, we need to start a foundation to help these individuals when they're put in these situations, getting unjustly accused, especially through the military. But then we also added on law enforcement and first responders. So what we pretty much do is, people can go on pipehitterfoundation.org, and if you are in a situation where you're being unjustly accused, or especially nowadays with the mob justice, with the media, you fill out a grant, and I have just an awesome board of, I got SEALs on there, cops, lawyers. I mean, just a different array of different people. Everybody looks at their case, and we all either give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, like we're going to, whether we're going to help or not. If we do decide to help, then we raise money for your legal defense. We don't appoint lawyers, but we have a list of vetted lawyers that you can call and choose from that we know are trustworthy. And we also raise money for your family, an emergency relief fund during that time, because what we found out during our time is, it's not just the legal fees and everything else that you're, dishing money out for. It's also all the little things that you don't think about. My wife and kids had to travel to come visit me in the brig from Florida. So like plane tickets, dog sitters, babysitters, all little things like that add up. So we raise money for the families so they can support themselves during this time. And then if the individual wants to, we will also advocate for them as well in any way possible, which my wife is a genius at doing it. So we also have our executive director, Dina Cruden, who's just an amazing woman. She's also a genius at it as well. So, it's the foundation is going really well. We got it started not too long after I got out. We got IRS approval. Obviously COVID sort of threw a wrench in the system there, and it was a little hard to raise money, but now we're really off to the races. We're helping some cops in San Diego. Matthew Degas, he is going to trial here soon. So we're helping him and his family get through that. We also just joined in and helping the Blackwater Four, who were pardoned by Trump. If nobody has heard of that story, I suggest going on the Sean Ryan podcast. He had just interviewed them for 5 hours, and they tell the complete story, and it'll horrify people, just exactly what happened to those guys. So we volunteered to pay off their legal fees, after they got out, because I think everyone thinks, once you're pardoned, it's like, oh, you're good to go. Well, these guys had accumulated millions of dollars in legal fees during that time. So they get out, and now they have no job, no nothing. They're pretty much branded as war criminals by half the country because they were pardoned, which is so far from the truth. So we were like, hey, we're going to come in and raise money, pay off your legal fees so you guys can get on with your lives. And then I've also helped a lot of our teammates. Obviously, they don't want to be named or advocate, have their faces out there, but we have helped them out behind the scenes and just, got them through whatever is going on at the command.
Sure. Wow. You got a lot going on, man. It seems like you're doing it the right way too. You're just one thing at a time and making sure that you do it with the utmost integrity, and then you're getting to the next thing, and then everything is going to soar because you're moving in the right direction. I mean, I got to ask you the question, what the hell is on tap next? What are you going to do next?
Well, I'm sort of living it day by day, man. Like I don't, like you just said, doing one thing at a time. I'm not one of those guys, which I wish I was. I see some of our teammates out there doing like a million different things constantly. I pretty much focus on, I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this one thing. I'm doing it. And I anything that takes away time from my wife and kids, I definitely think long and hard about, like, okay, is this going to be worth it? Is this going to be worth my time? So, right now the book obviously came out June 29th. We're still sort of doing marketing for that. And once that's done, I plan on doing a lot of consulting. It's like I just went with a good buddy of mine, Dave Rutherford. We put on a shooting course for a company. It's just awesome time. And I've done that a couple times with Jared Hudson with TSI, gone out with them, and just I really get a lot of enjoyment out of that, man. Like seeing people actually learn, and especially these people who have never shot a gun or done anything like that before. They come up there and they're shaking, and you're like, just take a breath, and then you can see once they pull that trigger and the round goes out, they're like, oh shit, like this is awesome. I'm like, yeah, there you go, and then get them into it. It's cool, man. So I definitely want to do a lot more of that. There's a range being built called Stronghold Solutions. It's going to be about 15 minutes from my house. A Green Beret I met that he got out and decided to build this. It's a massive range. It's going to be sort of like Shaw's. It's got a 2-story kill house. So my goal, man, is just to train people. And now I want to train DOD guys that are going down range. I'd love to train them, and then also civilians as well. And sort of instill in them like the same beliefs that we had in the teams of like why we're doing it. And that's sort of the direction I want to go in after this whole book thing sort of dies down.
No, it probably won't die down for a long time, man. It's a solid book.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it is. It's definitely picking up steam, which that's a good problem. It's fine.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I wish you the best of luck on the continual sales of books. For all those listening, Man in the Arena, go buy a fucking copy, scoop it up, support Eddie and his family. Go check out Pipe Hitter Foundation, because there's not just one person goes through this shit. There are a lot of people in the country that go through this stuff, and they don't all get visibility. So we need to support all our foundations, especially when SEAL teams, Green Berets start a foundation. It's really for the right reasons, because we've seen it, lived it, we know it, and that's what it's there for. So go check out pipehitterfoundation.org and scoop up a copy of Man in the Arena. Eddie, thanks for being on the show, bro.
Thanks for having me on, brother. Seriously, good talking to you.
Yeah, you too, man. Right on.